Summary: the hadith is about Abu Huraira's journey to the Prophet and his manumission of a slave for Allah's sake. Abu Huraira freed his slave for the sake of Allah. Sahih al-Bukhari 2531. Narrated Abu Huraira, on my way to the Prophet I was reciting, "What a long, tedious, tiresome night. Nevertheless, it has saved us from the land of kufr, disbelief. I had a slave who ran away from me on the way. When I went to the Prophet and gave the pledge of allegiance for embracing Islam, the slave showed up while I was still with the Prophet, who remarked, 'O Abu Huraira, here is your slave.' I said, 'I manumit him for Allah's sake,' and so I freed him." Explanations. This hadith narrates the story of Abu Huraira on his way to meet the Prophet Muhammad. On his journey, he was reciting a poem about how a long night can save one from disbelief. During this time, he had a slave who ran away from him, but when he went to pledge allegiance to Islam at the presence of the Prophet Muhammad, his slave showed up again. In response to this event, Abu Huraira decided to manumit him for Allah's sake and freed him as an act of worship towards God. This hadith teaches us that we should be generous with our wealth and possessions in order to please God, and that freeing slaves is an act that will be rewarded by Him. It also shows us how even small acts such as freeing slaves can have great rewards in both this world and in the hereafter if done with sincerity for His sake alone. Sahih al-Bukhari 2532. Narrated Qais, when Abu Huraira accompanied by his slave came intending to embrace Islam, they lost each other on the way. When the slave showed up, Abu Huraira said to the Prophet, "I make you witness that the slave is free for Allah's cause." Explanations. Abu Huraira was a companion of Prophet Muhammad, and he was accompanied by his slave when they were intending to embrace Islam. On their way they got separated, and when the slave showed up again, Abu Huraira declared in front of Prophet Muhammad that he is freeing his slave for the sake of Allah. This hadith teaches us that we should be generous and free our slaves if we have any in order to please Allah. It also shows us how important it is to keep our promises, even if it means sacrificing something valuable like freedom or money. We should always strive to do what is right and pleasing to Allah, no matter what it costs us.